I guess. Okay, now they are able to hear you.
Okay. That's coming through.
1 second.
Okay, so the priorities, and if there's no comments on that, then let's go ahead and move to Jira.
Okay. So I mean, so if you were to start in your priorities, right? This is the stuff that's still pending on in a backlog, and
All of this? Oh, no, that's just, okay, you just brought in two.
no, yes, but the thing is, I don't know who brought these in. I think they got spilled over into when the next sprint got. These were the things that were not finished in last sprint,
Okay.
and therefore they got carried over into the next sprint.
Okay.
But I think we'll have to do more than this in order to be able to do the full switch over, unless we decide we're not going to fully switch over. But this would be something I think the switch over.
Okay,
The
so
protracted nature of dealing with bug is, I think, is starting to cost us time, and I think we just need to double up on it, even if it means pushing something else completely off into the next release. I think we just need to do it. I don't know if you would be in agreement, Brian, but I think you just
Yeah, I think, I mean, right now, what's happening is there are people that are adding new stuff, and they either like make it Maven, or they make it Buck, or they try to make it both. So we have kind of the overhead of managing two build frameworks right now. And we said to people is that the last supported, well, we would support Maven through the GoldenEye release. We could say that we're still willing to support Maven in the Hummingbird release, but the longer this drags on, sort of there's extra overhead associated with managing the parallel process.
So we either say that we're not going to do bug this release and just stop it and just deal with Maven. But I think
we're close enough that like we just need a final push and a little bit of
yes.
documentation, and we're done.
Yeah.
I pulled some stories. I pulled some stories in. You may just want to refresh.
Okay, sorry. Okay. Right. Already support plugin to bug. Install effects to Maven. I think we also need to be able to do this.
Oh, I pulled that one in too, but apparently I didn't. I guess when you undid it,
Maybe.
Brian, sorry.
Yes.
What do you mean when you say so? It's not a joke, really. It's a serious question. Because you say that we are close enough, right?
Yeah.
But on the other side, I see 42 stories on
42?
back. Between the backlog and the sprint.
Oh, the rest of the stuff. Well,
Can you make it bigger? I can't read it.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I will.
Oh,
Sorry.
forward. That's better. Thank you.
I'm just trying to understand what does it mean close enough.
I guess. So as a developer, there are several people, Thomas and myself included, that have been using Buck exclusively for the past like 3 or 4 months now, and so it's already in many ways close enough for some of us to be using, and basically what we don't have yet is like full feature parity with what we had with Maven, and there's some people that need that full feature parity, and for some people they just don't understand what's going on and how to use the new thing. And so part of this is telling people this is the new way we're doing things, and this is how you build, and this is what you need to know. And part of this is like, some of the providers, BGP LS and BGP PCEP and BMB2 and stuff. Like if you need any of those providers, then like we just have the way to build them with Maven. So that effort is actually coming pretty close to being done, thanks to Ray and Zane. And then in terms of like the other sort of feature parity is like having Swagger documentation, which doesn't really matter, but some people really like. Was supported feature, and then also being able to deploy these artifacts to Maven Central and also to local Maven repo in case you want to build a third-party app that's outside of the ONOS, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. From my
Framework.
standpoint, the immediate mandatory parity we have to achieve is to be able to release using Buck, which means be able to publish to local and remote repos and be able to publish jars, test jars, sources, and Java docs. The rest of the stuff is bells and whistles that can be added on later. And that's what I'm primarily after, so that we can use official, basically, we can start building official builds using Buck.
I guess my feeling on the matter, and I sort of want to echo the priority that was written on the Google Doc. Like, I think either what we do is we say we're pushing this forward and get it done for Hummingbird, or we say this was a fun experiment. For whatever reason, we couldn't make it work, and we're just throwing it out and going back to Maven. But I think that we either need to get it done, finish it, and move away from Maven, or we need to say like we're going to just use Maven because Maven is what we've used and it's worked.
So I mean, I use Buck a lot.
So I use
Right?
Buck all the
And,
time. I don't use Maven anymore
And
for anything.
I see tremendous improvement in productivity because of that, even though it is not fully feature
Agreed.
compatible with everything else.
Which is why I think we need to say, like, we need to get it to a point where it's useful for everybody in the community, and then we need to deprecate the old build system.
I guess the question is, do we have to get to that point?
These are regardless of stories, right? These are the main things that need to happen. The A is not necessarily, we don't need to necessarily upstream it, but we need to get to the point where it's upstream, where it can be upstreamed. We need to be able to build Swagger, CFDEF, Java docs, and ability to publish. We then need to be able to generate our POM files because we still need to be able to generate POM files from the bug dependencies in order to be able to publish into my main repository. I thought that if we get those three things done, then we can start doing release trial runs. Basically, kind of fake RCs.
Okay.
There's a little more to that. For example, in code, we're still using Maven.
Yes.
And we wouldn't, like, we moved to Bug for speed.
Yes.
We wouldn't benefit necessarily from speed now because all our apps are relatively small
Yes.
and they compile in a matter of seconds, right?
Yep.
So, but if you were to deprecate the Maven build, right, we depend on the ONOS root POM.
Oh, the POM would still, especially the published one, would still stay in place. The thing is, we would not necessarily move it along until we have the ability to generate the dependencies.
Okay, so you would leave the POM file structure there in place.
So yes and no going forward. So historical POMs are published. You can access those anytime.
Sure, but
Moving forward with POMs, the idea is to basically completely drop the build portions.
Sure.
And then generate just the dependencies automatically. You would still have to depend on build portions. And if you wanted to depend on a new structure or new dependencies, you would have to depend on that as well. So you're right. So there'll probably be some extra.
So there's a couple things you may be interested in, right? Like, one thing you may be interested in is the build phase piece of the root POM, which we could move into a like util like Maven POM. The other thing you're interested in is the plugins for building ONOS apps, plugins for doing the config dev stuff, Swagger generation, etc. And like, there's no reason to throw that code out either.
Yeah, those will continue to be supported for our archetypes, for external apps.
But in terms of like having all of the intermediate POMs like throughout the code tree, that shouldn't be terribly interesting to someone outside of the main repo.
Because what I was going to suggest is because if we're still not at a state where we can make a release of Buck exclusively. Is that correct?
That's correct. And
That's
the whole
correct.
point of the number one is to get to that point.
So, what I was going to suggest is get Buck to the state where you can use it for development, right? But when it comes time to make a release, rely on Maven, right? Because the Maven, I mean, from my point of view at least, making a release to Maven Central with Maven is easier. It just seems to me that it would be easier without having to add a whole bunch of new code and new things, and then you just keep that around, and you do that with Maven, and you keep that with these processes in Maven because we don't care how long it takes to compile the release. Who cares, right?
The difference is that the build steps are slightly different, and so if all the development's being done on one, and there's like new features or build steps that are added, then you may not be releasing the bits
But
that
you've
are
been
being
testing.
developed on a regular basis. So there could be, because we don't have like 100% test coverage, there could be sort of regressions in the Maven built bits, especially if all the developers are used to
I see.
building and testing on Buck.
I see. All right. Well, so I mean, well, my concern is, uh, will I have to move the core apps to Buck, which is fine to some
No.
extent.
You shouldn't. You shouldn't have to. Because you have very little to benefit because they're individual apps.
No, exactly.
So
but I'm
the
just thinking,
Maven
like,
is practically identical in terms of speed.
I mean, yeah, there's a bit more decoupling that I wish we could do from ONOS apps and the ONOS platform.
Yes, but I think that
That's irrelevant.
the steps that Brian suggested in terms of us providing basically sort of the build plugin configuration portion and separating that from the dependencies, that can be accomplished.
Okay. As long as that's fine.
Yeah, the other thing that we want to be able to do is, in addition to publishing artifacts to Maven Central, we want to have a better way of publishing them to your local Maven repo. So that say you make a change in ONOS, a core change in ONOS that's required for an app that you're building, you can actually build your app outside of the ONOS repo against the locally built bits, which is possible today, but
You need to do a few steps.
you need to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Right, so can we go back to the?
Yes.
So what's the minimum that we can do here?
So we need to start with this.
Well, so there's
this one is largely finished actually. So,
Yeah, that one's pretty much done.
but it's not completely finished, which is why we didn't count the story last week.
So the plugin framework to Buck is related to the Swagger target, and there's another one, the API docs, perhaps. The publish and install locally is sort of an orthogonal story. And then the last one is the IDE support, which is
I would put that one last.
yeah, which is needed before you remove the palms, but not super difficult.
Okay.
How much work would that be? It seems like the building ID support for Buck would.
Buck already has support for it. You just have to give it a little bit of metadata about the project.
Not that it already exists.
Yeah, there's Buck.
I thought we had to build them.
Yeah, no. It's Buck project -ID IntelliJ, and it generates all the.
Oh, okay, fine. So I thought you had.
Yeah, you just have to define the project.
Yeah, so a number of these things are started. Like for example, this has been started. It's almost finished. We are building the individual jar API docs, but we would like to. There is room for improvement, but for the most part, this one is done. This one is a lot of it is done. This one, a lot of it is done, but these things are not.
Okay, we have 2 weeks, after this sprint, we have a 2-week period where we're not adding features to the code base, but we could certainly continue to work on Buck during that time. So are there things that we absolutely have to do in these 3 weeks or are there things that?
Yeah, so that's which is why I'm sort of turning to Brian here. Are these things necessary to accomplish the objectives that are outlined here?
Well, so typically, the publish to Maven, like normally, even when we did the Maven-based release process, there were always things we needed to fix up with the palms and fix up with like some of the artifacts we were generating and stuff like that. So I think from my perspective, the 2 stories that we have in here about publishing artifacts to Maven Central and like publishing local artifacts could be postponed to the next sprint.
Okay.
because that's something we kind of do around the time we're building RCs anyway.
Okay.
And it seems like the interesting ones to get done now are the Swagger plugin and the API, the JavaDoc stuff.
This one,
Yeah.
not the Uber ones, right? Because
The Uber ones we can do it now or later. It doesn't really matter. It's just
so I'm gonna demo this to chocolate backlog. So is this enough?
yeah, and it would be good if we had like Zane or Ray take a look at the IDE support as well. There's also a story in here that Zane's working on, which is the finish making sure we have buck files for all the stuff in the code base. I don't know what number that is.
Seems pretty generic.
Yeah, there's a number. There's a list of
See,
them.
my thought was that even the bug support could be demoted until right before we remove the comics and not
Yeah, we could demote that too.
because I would prefer to.
Yeah, it's not until the POM XML files are going away that you'd actually need that anyway. So
The question is, how much should we care about Sonar?
I think that
That's
Buck has the hooks to do it. The Jacoco coverage stuff.
probably needs to be another tabs. All right. So in terms of bug, then this would be the three things that we have to accomplish, and that will get us close enough.
Okay, good.
Good enough, Brian?
That's reasonable.
Doable, right?
I mean, the plugin framework we've basically got.
Okay.
Which
so
needs to be
so we can just.
cleaned up.
I just want to make sure we're confident that we can.
Yeah, no, I think we can make good progress on
And
those
we
three.
can always pull in more if you need to. Okay. All right. So we can move on to what was the number 2 priority.
Sorry, do you think that will take, so considering that you will vote 1 week away, do you think that will require like full time, considering like a court summit and all the rest of the stuff?
Well, the stories that we're looking at, right? One was an 8-point story that I've already spent like several nights on for fun. And so there's probably only like 2 points left in that story. The Swagger target, I think, is a reasonable 3-point story. And
Actually, this is priority wise, it's higher.
and the API doc stuff, I think, is also kind of in the three-ish point range. So this is probably like,
So let's say you have 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Forgetting the points.
Yeah.
Do you think we court summit or whatever else, it's 2 weeks of?
So let's get the rest of the stuff
Yeah.
in the.
Yeah, I'm just
In the
asking
sprint
because
first?
I don't know what to say to Brian
Sure,
to
sure.
develop for the northbound.
Yeah,
just
he
that.
may be on the hook for some other things. Yeah, so let's get the other things in there.
Okay. So in terms of 2, there's nothing to do, right?
Right, nothing to do
Now,
there.
3, now there was a pending question here.
Yeah.
With whether, right, you left it with a pending question about whether we can address these things now or move on.
Right. That is exactly 4.
Right, so which ones do you need?
Well, I don't know which one first. I know. I put them in order of priorities, right? So there are the pending reviews. So Wipeout, you can take it out if it's just this sprint. Corsa drivers and correction one of encapsulation. So correction of one of encapsulation has already 1+1 by Utah. It needs just another person that say, look at it.
So these are just reviews.
Yes.
So why don't we just
Yes.
create storage just handle some of the
Yes.
reviews, okay?
And by the way, the third one, well, at least for deployments, is good to have, but not urgent.
This is southbound fix reviews, okay?
And northbound.
Okay. And specifically, those would be these 3. I'm just going to copy it from here to there, okay?
Yeah. Okay.
And that should 2 points, right? Should be reasonable. Who's going to have to be doing this roughly? Whose expertise do you need on this? Southbound, that means putting
Can you
out
go
and
back
driving.
on? So the first one, well, probably Jono has some confidence on it. on the Corsa drivers. You work on that, I guess, right?
You can sign that over to me.
So that's one correction. One encapsulation could be either Brian or Show, probably.
And haven't I reviewed the wipeout corrections already? Those
We're waiting for feedback on that, right?
Okay.
Because you reviewed it.
Yeah.
He hasn't submitted you one.
Oh, so we are waiting from them. So that one can really go away at this point if we're
Okay,
waiting.
well,
for
I'll
them.
still leave it here. Just
Okay.
so, but roughly speaking, 2 points. I just wanted to make sure who was, okay, right? I just
Yeah.
created, and this is just next. So this will be Hummingbird 2, and I think I don't know. I'll just leave it on platform northbound. Is that right?
Okay.
Okay, so that's number A.
Yes.
Northbound issue C in the northbound section. Now the problem. Okay, this is gonna get long, right?
Yeah, that's actually the biggest thing blocking deployments. And I put them in order of priority and also dependency from one each other.
Okay, 4858 and 4857.
Okay, so who's waiting on 4858?
So for 858, we asked help for the community, but no one came back. Ryan, do you remember? The 5-second thing.
Oh, sorry, I'm filtering stuff. 4858.
If it takes more than 5 seconds, we go in infinite loop to install intents.
Yeah.
This one, those two, right?
Yeah, we should fix that.
Now, is this something that would be you or?
Sorry?
Help you? Is this something right now? Is your name on both of those? Is this something you need help with?
Who else can do it?
Or
Can show help us with it?
or
No, wait. So, sorry, I was saying no way to both things. The first one for 858, yes, needs to be done. For 857, should be automatically resolved if that's written in the document. If you go in the other document, it's more for QA to close it. So there's a fix.
Okay. So, all right. So I'm gonna pull both of these into Hummingbird Sprint 2. And then we can assign this one to Brian, and this one we can change ownership to. Can I just give it to John?
Jeremy.
Jeremy.
I verified from my side and it works. So
Okay. Okay, so that should take care of the first two.
Yeah.
Then
4.3.
So the 4387, 4594, and 4593 are the ones assigned to the to Nick Dean, the guy from Verizon.
Okay.
So he started working on 4387. Brian, do you remember what he? Brian?
Yeah.
Do you remember what he tell us to for his timeline? Like he will be out for a week and then he's sick
he's got
now.
like 2 or 3 weeks left.
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah, but
doing this
1 week
and
he's away.
Besides the times.
Yeah, next week
counted.
he's away. So
Most-
he's here this week. He's gone next week. He'll be here the next week, and then he's done.
Okay, so he has 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks we can do one of those stories, right?
Well, the one he's going to work on
The
is
4387.
Yeah.
So do you think that that's the only story he can do in these 2 weeks, realistically?
Well, the problem is how much of time, Brian's time, is it also going to take?
So the thing with this is that if I did it, like I told you, it would take 45 minutes. If he does it, it's going to take 3 days at a minimum and probably at least half a day of my time. So you can make your decision about how you want to do this.
No, I'm no one to take the decision. I mean, I just need a story to deploy, right?
Okay,
I mean,
so
then how you make it happen, I
is it the
don't know.
first one? Is
I
it
just
the
know we got a
4387?
person for that.
So 4387.
4387. Now I'm going to put you on it, Brian.
Sure, that's fine.
Is that right?
But I'm just saying now that we got a person for this, I wouldn't say, well, stay in vacation or do something else, right? At this point, we talked to him. We went.
Yeah,
through
so
his
we talked to
story,
him. We gave him some context.
Now we need to see how it goes.
Yeah, so we can
Sorry.
give him like this week to work on it, and if he makes good progress on it, that'll be great. But if he goes like the week, we can take what he has, pull it in, and then the following week I can fix it up if it needs to be fixed up. But I'll work on other things this week, and then next week we'll see when he's away if there were some things that need to be done on the story.
Okay, so northbound there's the fourth. So there's the two that we just pulled in. Brian for one for Jeremy to verify, and one for Nick/Brian to do. But I guess we should just assign it to Brian.
No, let Nick have it for this week. I'll work on other things, and then I'll come back to it next week if it needs to be addressed.
And try to burn as little time on it as possible in terms of consulting. Okay. Also, what got pulled in here, some intents cannot be purged, and is that part of the?
Yes, it was coming from the other sprint. It was already there, not in my list.
Is it something that should stay here? I thought this was fixed last time.
No, not fixed. I think so.
So we should fix it and then.
I think it was fixed and then it happened again.
Okay.
So,
Then maybe that's one thing. Okay. And Nintendo main documentation that cannot just stay there. Okay. Or do you want to demote it?
So is this the right order of things, of how we want to work on things?
Well, so if you're going based on the document, then it should be this one. Jeremy second. At least if you take look as priorities, right?
Okay.
And handle the pending reviews will be on top. So this would be pending reviews, the two intents, another one for Nick, and these two are left over. They're not on Lucas priorities, but they're left over from previous sprints.
Okay. Right. Good.
All right.
All right. So back to the document.
Okay. Resource allocation.
So
And there's these two other things.
So 459493 are already in there from the prior sprint. Is that what you said?
No, they're not. I don't think they are.
These are different. No.
4, 5, 9, 4.
Yeah, are always things that originally Nick should work on, and are the same type of fix. So for 4387, which is in the sprint, and the 4594 and 4593 are very similar, are just in the opposite direction. So on one side we need to support multiple treatments, on the other side we need to support multiple selectors.
Okay, so I'll put those together side by side. Right now it has Brian's name on it. Should I leave Brian's names on it? Or should I?
I'm just not sure we can commit for that at this point. It's the same thing we said at the end of this sprint, right? If Nick doesn't have time and Brian doesn't have time,
The thing is, if bug is priority number one right now, there's certain things that Brian needs to help with. I mean, I can take care of some of it, but it works much faster if there's two of us working on it, or two people. But whether it's Brian or I, or Brian and somebody else, or me and somebody else.
It's totally understandable. I'm just saying I shouldn't expect it, and we shouldn't commit it if we can't do it.
So I'm gonna bump it out. Sprint.
Right. So you got most important things for now. All right. Good.
Also, the story for Nick should probably be 2 points at a minimum, but for him 3.
Okay. Okay. So in terms of then there's so if it's in order of priority and we already decided to bump something,
Yes.
we just leave everything else off.
Yeah.
In terms of those things. There's none right here. Okay, so we're good. Visualization and slicing. This is the design. So
I guess you have points above. Sorry. Also from others, not necessarily from me, but I guess we skipped something. Yes, probably.
Oh yeah. So this one, okay. Critical bugs right here.
They're southbound.
Oh, the southbound, right here. Yeah. Oh, this one was okay. This was on Ali's plate. I think it was marked as.
I had time to do. I haven't had time yet.
Yeah, no, I understand.
No, I understand, but do we leave it in there or not? I think it's already in there.
Honestly, it's major, but it's not blocking. So
It's not blocking anything.
it's major, but not blocking. There are people that it's like 3 months that are complaining about that, but they are surviving anyway without it. So
Yeah, at this point, if it's not blocking,
yeah,
somebody.
exactly.
So can I demote it then? And also the question is the moving packet filter. So this got Ali. This was closed because you submitted the review, but I think there was some pushback on that.
Yeah, there was some pushback on.
So I'll reopen it just to keep
Yeah,
track. Do you want to address it here, or is there something we pumped down the line? What do you want to do?
What was the pushback? Was that some drivers weren't.
Basically, I think it placed demands on the behavior of drivers to basically provide the default handling to punt, right?
Yeah.
Which is what was.
And we sort of had a discussion about defining exactly what the obstructions are, right? Well, sort of-
I mean, it's more of a historical problem is that we used forwarding objectives for this. Initially, when we were supposed to use filter, and then the forwarding objectives became the ones that do this, and it should be the filtering objectives. And Sora was saying we should add a punt objective, but I don't necessarily see a need for that. I think it's too specific, but it's just a question of like modifying the drivers to support them. That's it, in my opinion. So it's
Cute. So clearly, I mean, this will entail probably having be some discussion on this, right?
yeah.
And implementing it's probably will.
It's just that I have to go through all the drivers and add that code. It's all the same code. Actually, we could have a default driver implementation that all drivers extend and have that default behavior and that runs automatically.
Should I repurpose this story to discuss moving packets of filtering objectives, and then that way there's a force a design discussion, and then I'll just rename this.
Sure, that sounds good.
Well, decide, right? And discuss. Decide. Go to brackets. Okay.
So that won't have to be in this sprint.
What?
That doesn't have to be in this sprint.
Not necessarily, no. Unless you think that's critical, Ali.
No.
Okay, so I'm gonna move it back. Back off. Enable disable open flow providers separately. I don't know who submitted this.
So
I'll see how it was. Charles. I don't know how critical that is. I don't think it follows any of the existing priorities. So we just bit it down. All right.
Okay.
And okay, so that's outbound in terms of core. So that. Okay. What about ONOS 3.0?
So this is not absolutely, but well, at least on my side, what we have to do is not a priority, an high priority, but this came out in the mailing list, and it seems there's an internet that would like to help us. Brian, office deployment, our table need aging mechanism.
Yeah, so Somya, one of the interns who's going to be here probably for another few weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, I'm not sure, was interested in trying to help make this happen.
You mean the intern?
Yeah.
I think the last 4 weeks he will focus on the testing, and the task you give to her, she described it is as a hobby, not a full-time work on it.
Right. So this would be kind of like a project that would help fill the gaps between while she's waiting on stuff from other people.
Yeah.
And this may be like anywhere from like a couple hours a day to like no time.
Is it 3029?
Sure.
Yeah.
So once we have that, we
So
can
yeah, I think
we
what
can
we
do
should- what we
reaction
should do
forwarding
is,
and deploy in the office.
is describe it to her, make sure she has enough context, and let her start working on it.
Okay, so can I assign it to her? How do you spell?
Soumya?
SOU.
S-O-U.
Oh, Grayson.
Yeah, okay.
Oh my God. I can't believe he's there. And that does not have to be pulled into the sprint, right? Because that's a separate activity. Is that what you just heard? Or?
Well, if it's gonna cost consulting time also too, then we need to track it, I would say.
Well, I think it's one of these things where she's sort of willing to dig into stuff. She just needs to be kind
Okay,
of pointed
so
in the
I'm
right
gonna
direction.
move this to top of backlog at least, so that we can sort of pull it in if.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so that takes care of your list at least at a high level, right?
Yep.
Okay, so we're ready to move to critical bugs. Is there any?
There's one that you did. This was data loss, potential data loss given scaling.
Which is
That
critical.
one. So I think we should continue looking into that at this point. And so that is the critical bug that I got.
Yeah, what about 4902? Just partitioning one node from a cluster coming to other nodes within their sessions.
Was it 4902?
4902.
9.
It's at the bottom.
Okay, is it already in a sprint?
It's not.
I would say, between the two, I think the data loss issue is more important.
Okay.
And considering I will be out 2 weeks sprint,
Okay.
I think we don't.
Okay,
have
I'm
enough
just gonna
time
move this to the top of the backlog then. Is that right? Okay. So this is good enough, right, to keep you busy and to. It was really far down. I wasn't. Okay. All right. So in terms of the. I don't necessarily have a story for this, right? I'm not sure this is a continuous load.
Yeah, I guess I was just wondering if we knew of anything that was going to come in and cause a bigger load than normal. You know of anything? No? Okay. All right, let's just move on.
I don't know. I don't know if there's anything that Huawei needs. The original plan was to move the repo. I'm debating whether it's something we should just punt down further down the line. Even.
Which one, the Yang stuff? I mean, we can pull it out. That's fine.
The problem is it's not a problem, but I've asked Patrick to help coordinate with the team in India that's working on this to find a quiet period. They need at least 24 hours when they basically flush all of their pending changes because they tend to queue up trains. And you can't move the repo out if you have changes. They have to flush them.
We can. It'll just abandon all their changes, which is not good. It would be good to have them take a
which
take
is
a
why
breath.
I said just take a breath.
But they're not interested in doing that. So.
So be done during the 2-week period after this sprint.
Be good. So, which is what I was heading towards suggesting, is that we either, we can potentially even pump the repo to the next release, I guess. I was hoping to do it as soon as possible, but given the fact we can move things with their history, we can do that later.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so we went through these, virtualization and slicing. So just before we move on to this, right? So this was just a complete design review and continue on working in.
Yeah, and you have the design review tomorrow, right?
Yeah, and then Brian's gonna continue to do the proof of concept. Brian Saki. And his
Right.
time really not counts against this. So I think the design review is really the only time that counts against this sprint. So I would just have a story for them to complete the design review, and I think there was one on should be left over from there. Okay. Now the thing is, we as part of the sprint we are because Brian planned these things in there, so there's extra story points in here. We can probably leave them in the sprint. even though it doesn't really count against our time. So that's that. Where do you want? So we can move to Simon. Simon, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. I've been listening in. So yeah, this is just again continuing on support for scalability of topologies. One of the things that I realized was, for example, 4326 was too broad in being a story, so I've started to break it out into 70, 71, 72 below.
Mm-hmm.
So the 8 points assigned to that is really not appropriate in as much as it's covered by the 2, 3, and 3.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave it there as a placeholder. We've done a similar thing before.
Okay.
Drop it out of the sprint, and we're gonna track those stories individually, and then close up the parent story later as well.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I also need to talk to Stephen and basically do a similar thing with the design and implementation of the client side, but I just haven't got around to doing that yet.
Yeah, but story-wise, it looks reasonable then for you to be.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Thanks.
Sure.
All right, and the Kafka integration.
Yeah, there are a few things that
Is that under core?
there is a epic called Kafka.
Kafka.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
So there are. This was something that was part of the last sprint as well. This week is Sanjana's last week. So there are a few things that she's working on that are, I feel, in the next 3-4 days we can at least get to a point where they can be checked in.
Mm-hmm.
There will be some additional development that will be remaining on top of it for this feature to be included in the release. But this is mostly things that can be done in this week before she leaves.
Okay. All right. And in terms of the priorities, then sort of doing this scan of this list, so that sort of exhausts it. So what else is in the sprint? I guess if you were to take a broader
So
look.
that you also go look at the whole and see what.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was going to do.
Yeah.
So if you were to select all issues here, and then, so just as a glance, so total we have 133 points, 36 issues. That includes number of test work. Right? So if you, that's at a high level.
Do we know what's going on with the first sprint? Why there's only OpenStack stories in there?
I think that sprint is being used by Young Sang and the SQL team.
Okay.
So I think we don't need to be necessarily concerned with it. That's we may need to ask them to they may need to close it and restart it, right?
Sure.
I'll talk to her afterwards. Okay. But for now, the backlog cleanup. Do we think we need another session of backlog cleanup? This is a standing item. I generally don't close it. I just move it to the top of the backlog.
Yeah, not in this sprint.
Okay, that's kind of what I was wondering. So I'll move it to the top of backlog. Okay. So we have 130.
There's also a story that's unscoped. The IP optical story near the bottom.
Okay. Now this is for it's a bug. Jeremy, do you have any data on this one? Bring port down and encoding brace network topology.
That was a bug that was reported a while ago, that we discussed during the bug cleanup, the backlog cleanup, and I didn't have a chance to look up what was going on there in last sprint, but I was planning on to just look into it at the beginning of this sprint and see if it was still occurring or not, and then.
So how many story points to just roughly assign?
2.
Okay. So just do a quick scan from the top down. So core we talked about, northbound we talked about, right?
So this is this Did we add 4460 or was that already?
It was already.
That's something that I'm working on. It's still in review.
Okay. Right. So that it belongs in this, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we talked about the reviews, we talked about these intent-based services, including documentation, design review for virtual network. Should we discuss with the community ones are still?
These are David. They signed David.
The first one's not assigned.
First one is not, but this one is.
Who's that assigned to? Is that assigned to him?
No, it's not assigned to anybody.
I think we should just pull these.
I think this was originally created by me, I think. David. Okay. So you want to pull it out?
Yeah, let's pull that out.
So we're gonna leave these two virtualization stories just to keep track of Brian's work. Right. Buck, Kafka, developer tools, module owner v3. I think we should devote that. I think, frankly, we could. Yes, the idea for this story was to use interns to help us take over some of the module plugin. But given but first of all, the reason why they never took off because the skill set of the interns and interest in other areas, we never really found anybody.
Yeah.
And this will cost Brian's time. It's 100 years. But it just, we can figure out where it lies and write the priorities, but not just in the backlog. Okay?
Yep.
So GUI that's taken care of. This is a defect. Should probably figure out who should own this. We should assign an owner to this. Connect exception in CHO test. Is that something?
Intermittent bug show test. I think that's from last week.
Okay.
We'll do that.
How urgent is it?
So ONOS recovers from it. So it causes some intermittent failures.
Okay, so can I mark it to backlog? And to go back, talk to the test. So the various test improvement stuff.
I can close, or that top one is being blocked by a minor codec defect, where there's no life field if you're getting flows from the REST API through the application ID.
Okay. So what about that one then?
So
do you want me
I mean, we can write the test code,
Yeah.
but unless there's changes in ONOS, that won't do anything. So, and I don't think do we have a story for that?
Story for that. Yeah, there should be a story for that.
Isn't there somebody adding live field to the codec, Brian? Remember there was a discussion on the mailing list about somebody saying that the life is.
Yeah. There was a guy who was going to send a review. His name is.
But that was not REST API, right? That was just
No. That was changing the documentation to reflect the appropriate semantics, and then update the field to be more flexible. But that was not pulling that through to the REST API.
Can we unless we get a volunteer from community to take care of the defect, so we should probably.
So,
do you want to
our
file
work
the
is
defect?
already done.
The test code is already finished for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I don't. It's not closed because that defect is still there.
can you? Is it a story?
The defect is a story. Yeah.
Okay.
So what this is issue right here is the problem that the ONOS does not report the life in its
REST
return.
API. Yeah.
Okay, this is like a 1-point story that
4932.
wait 4932.
Do you have a link to it here?
Oh yeah, it's like
Blocked by 2 points.
Point
Sure.
story, that's fine. May I suggest that we label this as a starter bug and then and then have solicit actively somebody.
Okay.
Can I leave it in your ballpark to solicit somebody to do this?
It's assigned to you right now. Do you want to assign it?
Unassign it?
Yes, I will assign me. I'm not sure why.
send it to you.
Yeah, it's fine. I just how do you do this? Okay. Yeah, and maybe you as first candidate would be the person who volunteered to do the internal Java change. So if you can ping him and say, hey, would you mind also adding this? Okay. All right. Going back. Okay. So then I presume all of these are still valid for you guys without going through them one by one?
Yeah, we just added
All right.
this one.
Security mode, okay. All right, I guess that means that everything has been at least sanctioned to be in.
And none of those other test improvements require any assistance from the development team?
And many Bob's help for the ONOS Pi.
Okay.
I think that should be fair.
Yeah.
And so we should probably, at least as far as assignment, I think everything has an owner except some items cannot be purged. And the fix reviews, which don't have a single owner. So, but I'm gonna assign Jono to this just since he volunteered. As one of the reviewers, right? And the way he can track the story. In Heaven. Okay, and then for the some item intents cannot be purged. How loaded are you, Brian?
16 points.
Do you have prior knowledge of this one or not?
Yeah.
Is it something that would be fair to assign it to you 2 points?
It's fine. I'll take a look.
Okay.
So, I'm not sure this sprint is the right moment to bring this up, but at least you are aware that there have been big issues with the resource framework, the resource manager. That's why we discovered the bug in the intent framework. So I know it's not a scientific data, the one I'm giving to you, but on a laptop where usually it takes like a few milliseconds to provision an intent, if you request just a VLAN, it takes what we saw, Brian, like 0.4, 0.5.
It's about 500 milliseconds per hop. So if you have a 3 or 4 hop intent each direction, you're looking at like 5 seconds to install an intent.
And so at that point, we trigger the other issue that Brian
understand.
with. So there are clearly performance issues in the resource manager. There's a story, which again is not very scientific. It says exactly what I told you. It says just is low.
Say that again. So
installing an intent requires So there's two issues here. One is that there are a lot of sequential calls being made to the resource service. Each of those sequential calls takes a few hundred milliseconds, and the intent compiler at the moment makes like maybe 10 of those calls for like an average path intent. Mm-hmm. And so there's multiple seconds that build up in just making calls to the resource service. So some of that could be batching, like we could batch the requests, and some of it would just be probably trying to identify like hotspots in the code.
So assuming 10 calls is the average that you're talking about, it seems a lot. The average time to make a store operation is 1 to 2 milliseconds. So it feels like there is a lot of unaccounted for time somewhere.
Yeah.
That maybe there is some.
Remember, VLANs are treated as a discrete resource, but they really are continuous resource, right?
So it's possible that it actually translates into a larger.
Yes. No, that's exactly why, because there's I think almost nearly a linear search.
Okay.
Which we need to address that. I think we need to. Yeah, I think the resource subsystem is another issue. We may need to relook how it needs reinforcements.
Yeah.
See, this is one good case where we can get help from the community. So the giant guys, especially Pierre, Michele,
sure.
all those guys, every time are there, like when they send commits, they start to send me emails. They start to send emails to the community saying, "Please give me a review. Like I want to work, but give me a feedback." Right. So if we involve them in the right way, we have development resources there, and they know what to do.
Agree.
Right.
Yeah.
So they just need to
yes. Yes. I mean, we have ownership. We have ownership right now, but I think we need help in that area. Okay. So at a high level, 118 points, 32 issues. Seems reasonable. I think let's do a good job on tracking the progress on these things, much better than last time, and let's pull this off.
So when are you have stand-ups? So I want to start joining.
Right now we have stand-ups scheduled from 11:45 to 12.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Monday, Wednesday.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Okay. All right. So it'll just must be Wednesday this week. Cool.
All right.
Thanks.
And the thing is, as long as the stories are getting updated, and as long as people are vocal about getting their, if somebody's blocked, I mean, the whole idea is of the stand-up is right. What am I doing from the sprint log? What am I going to be working on? Is there anything blocking me? And the two of those questions can be answered, by looking at what's in progress and what's been closed. Clearly, what's blocking can't. So at least be vocal about what's blocking on the days that we don't have stand-ups.
Yeah.
All right.
So should we say also to the guy of Verizon to join stand-ups?
Yeah, anybody who's got a bug on yours.
Yeah, I think they'll be here on Wednesday.
Or an issue.
So I'll send him an email saying if you are not here,
Yeah.
you're very welcome to join remotely, right?
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So is the sprint starting?
Nope. Let's start it right now.
We have how many points total?
118.
118.
118.
Okay.
Hummingbird sprint 32 issues. 180. Yeah. Okay. So we'll start sprint, and it's going from today to. So today is. 20.
So we'll go to August 12th.
August 12th. Yeah. Is it 2 week sprint or 3 week sprint?
3.
This is a 3 week sprint.
August 12th. Yeah. 3 weeks.
Oh, that's right. You got it. Yeah. Makes sense. I'm going to schedule it. Yeah, that's fine. Start. All right. Let's do this.
Excellent.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them that are in progress already.
Yeah, no, there are. Yeah. All right. So I think you can stop the recording. Good to go.